feel like it's important to not think of improvising and drumming as this thing that needs to be new all the time, even like pattern-wise, and also like the music you're making. You want habits. You just want your habits to be sick.
Hey guys, Nate here from the 80/20 Drummer. This past week, I had a chance to sit down with my friend JP Bouvet, who is, in my opinion, one of the best teachers in the world right now, at least in my kind of orbit. And I know those are strong words. I think there are different types of teachers. There are obviously lots of master teachers around the world, but in terms of distilling things down and pulling out the concepts in such a way that you can teach things online without being right in front of the student, I feel like JP is the top. So I was super lucky that JP had a free afternoon to come over to the studio, and we just set up the cameras, mic'd us up, mic'd the drums, and just talked through stuff. And we're going to release that entire hour and 15-minute interview as a podcast next week. But I want to show you a quick excerpt of it, just like 15 minutes, where we go over a concept that we kind of have in parallel that he calls the building blocks exercise and I call the switching exercise. We go back and forth about where the ideas came from, and it came from a different place for him, and I think the interchange is really, really interesting. Help me understand the concept better. If you don't know me, my name's Nate. Some people call me the 80/20 Drummer. I've been a fan of JP since the Berkeley Shed days, so it was super, super fun to get him here in the studio. Before I hand you off to JP, one more thing. If you'd like complete show notes for this in outline form, just click the link below the player. We'll have them there for you for free. And with that, on with the interview. Yeah, I'm curious if you're willing to introduce that concept a little bit and talk a little bit about how it came about, like what problem it was solving.
Yeah, it came about, there's this course I have called the 16 Invisible Rhythms course. And I thought it was really clever at the time. It helps you play grooves like this, which are like really, this is like a hallmark of modern drumming, I feel like. And I call this a flow groove, really creative, because you're flowing and you're grooving at the same time. You're grooving in that you maintain a backbeat and you're in groove position. You're flowing, you're improvising in the sense that your hands are improvising. And so the idea was, how do you teach someone to do the improvisation part? And again, I'm always thinking about rhythmic vocabulary, which I'm always thinking about rhythmic melodies. The skill that needs to be developed, almost the only skill that needs to be developed, is the ability to play unfolding melodies on the hi-hat that are unique and interesting and that you're making up on the fly. So this is the hard part, actually. Because if that's happening, the technical putting the backbeat in is a relatively small step. And once that's all happening, you can cook, then everything's smooth. But if the melody's not happening, nothing else can happen. So my friend Ian Barnett, awesome drummer, was super into, well, for a long time, has been into this genre called footwork. And footwork has the, that melodic chunk, boom, 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 which is 1/16th note different from the most common melody, doom, 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 doom. The last note is one earlier, doom, 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 doom. So I was around Ian a lot. He was listening to this stuff. He was including that rhythm in his playing a lot. And it's just a permutation, right? So this was all sort of, I don't know, some kind of light bulb moment that happened over a little bit of time. It's a permutation of the first pattern. You have da, 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 and then you have ba, da, ba, 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 ba. And then there's a couple other ones he would use all the time, like 3 and 4 and stuff like that. And I was like, these are all permutations of this pattern. So anyways, all I did was take the 8 permutations of that pattern, and then I was thinking, if you can basically mix these up on the fly, it'll always work, and it'll always sound good, and it gives you a starting place. And then I just added 8 more, which are based on da 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 da. If you permutate that 1/16 over, you get 3 e and 4 e and. And you can permutate that through the grid, and you have 8 more. That's why I call them 16 invisible rhythms. I call them the invisible rhythms because they're kind of everywhere. So when you see someone doing this type of stuff, they're probably not thinking of this specific method because they're already at the point where they can sort of have the rhythmic stream of consciousness running. But a way to develop that skill and then sort of forget it is this building blocks approach. That's where it came from. And the thing I think is interesting about the approach is how much it is a means to an end. Because you've got 16 chunks of melody, and basically the idea is rearrange them on the fly. However, you can't think of all 16 at once. You really just can't hold them all in your mind. So you work on these in pairs, right? You can imagine the exercises. Like, it's take any 2, match them up. They'll almost always sound cool. Number 2 plus number 10 is. And then you work on getting the kick drum involved, adding extra accents here and stuff. But that's how you do the work. And just like what we described with the previous exercise with the 4s and 2s and stuff, it's that middle gray zone that is challenging. The drills are easy, pairs. The end is easy because it's by definition easy. The creative exercise part of all this is where you try to do this on the fly. And it's this weird internal like balance that needs to happen where you will think of individual melodies. But you also need to stop thinking of the melodies or the individual chunks and think melodically, right? You need to go ba 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 da ba da ba ba da ba ba da ba 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 da ba ba da ba ba. That was definitely made up of the chunks, but I can't tell you which ones, and I wasn't thinking about when.
Right.
So you do the drills to get you to this point where you can do some improvisation with it. And then you start repeating yourself, and then you try to identify, what am I repeating? What am I never playing? And you go back to them, and you do this back and forth. And as you do this, when you get into the creative practice stuff, it pushes further and further. So you start to actually, again, get past that point where you're thinking of not every possible melody ever. I don't think anyone's doing that. I don't think that's the goal. You're thinking of enough variation in the melody that it feels to both you and the audience like you are improvising a new thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay, that's fair. That is the goal. The goal isn't constant new drumming. The goal is enough new vocabulary so that every time you speak a thought, it feels like a new thought. You use the same words to answer this or that question, but it feels like a new thought. Even if you tell the same story, even if you teach the same idea, it feels different every time because you are improvising it again based on the internal idea. So that, long story short, is where what I now call the building blocks approach came from for me. And I haven't done that much experimenting with like bringing that into a fill context or some smaller context where I very explicitly use that. But that's where it was born, and there's a couple other flow groove type of settings where it works really well. But do you have other case studies for that?
Yeah, actually. The thing you were just demonstrating, I feel like this is ubiquitous in modern drumming, and everybody's kind of seen it, and I agree, there's kind of a mystery over the origin of it. It's a similar thing to like ride cymbal bell melodies too, right? It's like, what are you supposed to play on the ride cymbal bell? Like, right, and the way I think about it is sort of just like claves, right? So like the phrase I use for it is funk claves, but it kind of went in the opposite direction for me, where I was seeing, I guess it's sort of like the Thomas Pridgeon, David Garibaldi style of improv, where it's just like really big contrast between accents and ghost notes, a lot of ghost notes on the snare drum, and then punctuations on the toms or rim shots. Like that sort of thing. So my approach was actually to start with claves like are written out in John Riley's book, like the art of bop drumming. So like for the swing beats, he'll have you play like a swing beat on the ride cymbal and then melodies with the left hand. So like, well, that's a clave. So, long story short, back when my friend Kyle and I were at MSM with John, Kyle invented a way to take John's claves and then put a kick drum before the resolution point. And then years later, I came back to that. I'm like, well, this is kind of a way to approximate that style of drumming. But then, like, how do I get people to improvise with it? So I was like, okay, well, sort of as you did, like, what are some component parts? Like, and actually it's very similar to what you did with the Meinl video, with the sextuplet thing, but it's just like, well, I feel like I hear a lot of drummers just playing this shape. I feel like I hear a lot of drummers playing this shape. I feel like I see a lot of drummers playing this shape. Okay, well, what if I tell a student alternate between like A and C, right? So you can change orchestration, you can change order, but the integrity of the shapes needs to be maintained. So like, and just as you described, you start to assemble a lexicon, and then you sort of see like where somebody's repeating themselves, or where they kind of seem like a one-trick pony a little bit, and then you sort of just like supplement. And like one big thing is like, I feel like a cheat code is the left, right, or right, left kick with the accent on the left. So, because that feels like it opens up a bunch of ambidexterity, and you can interchange it with the right, left. So. Like that instantaneously opens up a bunch of stuff. Finally, I went the other way. I'm like, okay, someone was asking me about like, this sort of thing. So I'm like, well, maybe this is similar to if you practice these sort of switching exercises, these claves around the toms, but then you just fix the backbeat and like move the lead hand to the hats. So similar thing from a different direction. Yeah, curious how that lands and if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, that all checks out for me big time. I think I feel like you just made this clearer to me than I've ever thought of it. I feel like there's like these two big phases. Maybe there are other ones surrounding them, but like one of them is where the building blocks stuff works, mostly even numbers. This, I think, has a different goal with developing improvisation on the kit than the second phase, which is one where the odd number, like you get comfortable with odd numbers. And really, I pretty much mean threes. like second nature level comfort with groups of three. And then, like tag onto that groups of six, tag onto that some stutters of those, and hey, look, now you're playing some groups of five here and there. And then you are using the twos, fours, and sixes, the twos and fours, I should say, that you've already worked on. And I feel like there are two different goals, and I feel like they're fundamental to developing freedom on the kit, but distinct. One of them is just the skill of rearranging patterns on the fly, no matter what the difference is. So in like the demonstration you just did, it's not duration of pattern. it's orchestration and dynamics within the pattern. An awesome way to get a ton of juice out of a group of 4. And then, right, so that's one skill that needs to be actually actively developed that I think is easy to miss, is rearranging things on the fly and knowing what they are, not doing it haphazardly. And then the second skill I'm thinking about is you really don't have a choice, I feel like, once you're dealing with odd groupings. And I just mean 3s for the most part. You have to get to this next phase of like, you're following the melody as opposed to following the grouping. Like maybe you hijack the grouping exercise-wise, drill-wise, to get you to the melody in the beginning, but you just cannot get stuck thinking of the patterns forever when you start dealing with odd numbers. So that means that's where your rhythmic vocabulary, your melodic thinking needs to like blossom in a way. And I don't know what your experience with this is, but I think patterns like right, left, kick are super, I think most drummers underestimate how hard that is to do. And groups of 3, to just like get them going, maybe start and stop them, but not on one the same place every time. That is so much harder than most people think. I feel like, you think like, okay, right, left, kick, short pattern, can't be that hard. Groups of 3, come on, can't be that hard. It really is, I feel like. But I think it's not because like anything technical, it's because of this change that I think maybe that we're describing, where you like really have to have a transformation, evolution, if we want to think in Pokemon terms, from thinking about the patterns to thinking about the melody. But that's one of the most, I feel like one of the most important things you can get to.
So folks, hope you enjoyed that exchange with JP. One more time, if you'd like the detailed show notes of all the concepts we go over, we have that for you for free. You can click the link below the player and tell us where to send it. And look out for that full interview with JP the following Monday from whenever you're watching this video. Do this, Ben. We'll always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week.